Emergency, just in case this council was opposed to it. I'm guessing there was a lot of discussion afterwards, so.
All right.
This council in the town appreciates it, so. Any other discussion?
It's going to be a great time. I
Yes,
know
it is.
I have a
Yes.
good feeling.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We just lost half our audience. Thanks, everyone.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just very
Of course,
quickly, as always, we always appreciate the volunteerism. So thank you for all that you do.
Well said. Thank you, Tony.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is G1, and this is the Bristol 250th Commission with appointment set to expire December 2027. And this is a draft resolution to increase the number of board appointments from 3 to 5.
So if this council recalls, at our last meeting, we found it very difficult to make a decision, so we took the decision away from ourselves.
Thank you,
and
Councilman
moved it
Lay.
from 3 to 5. That's what this resolution is. So if it sounded like we were all comfortable and in favor of this, so I would assume we just need a motion to.
I'll make a motion that we extend the number from 3 to 5. We have some great candidates, and how can you refuse volunteer help?
See that?
Yeah.
Second.
Motion made by Mary, seconded by Tony, as stated. Any discussion?
No, thank you, Councilman Lay, for suggesting it. I'm glad because we've got great applicants. So
It didn't take a lot of
Appreciate
persuasion. I'll tell you that. So,
Well said. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is G2. This is the Bristol 250th Commission. This is 5 council appointments set to expire December 2027. We have Douglas O'Rourke, William Larry, Warren Resenhausen, Andrea Rounds, and Michael Riley, all with interest in appointment.
I make a motion that we approve all 5 candidates.
Second. Yeah.
No, 1 second.
Motion
Great
made
group.
by Tony, seconded by Mary to appoint all 5 candidates. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Good luck, everyone, on that.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is G3. This is the Recreation Board, second alternate. This is 1 3-year term set to expire February 2027. We have Kevin Santazzo with interest in appointment, Michael Tomaselli with interest in appointment, and Joseph Bruno, who I did speak with. As you recall, he didn't make it to the interview. Unfortunately, he does apologize to the council that he couldn't make it, but he had some personal issues that came up, and he's no longer able to serve on the board. So he has withdrawn his interest in the appointment.
I'll make a motion to appoint Michael Tomaselli. All the candidates were excellent, but I don't know what my colleagues think.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Aaron to appoint Michael. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, and I'll take a moment for this council. Tony covered a little bit ago with the 4th of July committee, but for all of our boards and commissions, thank you. And coming here tonight, as all of you are with the 4th of July committee, to give back to the community is most appreciated by this council. It is easier to stay home and do nothing, and we just don't have that problem here in Bristol. And this council and the town knows it, appreciates it, and thanks you for it. Thanks, everyone.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is H1. This is Robert McNeil Design Collaborative, doing business as the Northeast Golf Company, 96 Broad Common Road. This is a request to add a Class C liquor license. This is also in combination with C1. And this is for, attached is the suggested restrictions for the Class C alcohol license for the Bristol Golf Park.
Is Mr. McNeil here?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. McNeil just texted me, and he had an emergency in New Jersey, and he's not able to make tonight's meeting.
Okay.
So,
That actually might be perfect timing. I know, Mr. Administrator, before we have any discussion?
Yeah, I also got something along with the clerk during the meeting. It said there was an emergency in New Jersey. Their position remains the same, to pursue a Class C license with prepared food from local vendors available at the park, along with beer and wine sales for our patrons. And they essentially just apologize for the emergency, and also mentions that perhaps tonight's meeting, this could be reviewed or pushed to the next meeting.
So,
Mary, go ahead.
can we still talk about like something that may be missing from this?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was a little disappointed in seeing, at the last meeting, we talked a lot about like a Class C is like, we don't usually have those. We don't have one. We had a petition to create one. And there's a lot of concern because, our bars have had to like contend with this issue for many years about food and having to be able to make it on the premises and so forth and so on. So I understand the rules that were put forth, like here's like the limitations of this particular license if we were to approve it. But what I was looking for and hoping for was something like a more general framework that would, serve as a way to deter people from just saying, hey, this is an easy way out. And I was thinking that it would be more something like, and I don't have a ton of examples here, but I use the example, for example, you need to have potable water and sewerage there. So I would think that we would need to set up, and I don't know what the right numbers are, so I'm just kind of using numbers off the top of my head. If water is not available within like X number of feet, and sewage is not available within X number of feet, and it will cost X number of dollars to be able to bring that there, that would be one restriction. So is it 500 feet? I don't know what the right number is. I'm just throwing these out as examples of what I think the framework should be. Like it's, a seasonal business. It's not like, this is not like, oh, we don't, if we do this, and I don't know what people think if it would pass or not, but we don't want to open the floodgates to people who want this. And, I think when we were listening to the gentleman at the last meeting, it was sort of like my head, like just with him brainstorming a little bit, like, well, why not just get the, this from the brewery? Well, the brewery isn't licensed by us. Well, why don't you just bring food and microwave it? Well, we can't do that because it says you have to have a full kitchen. I mean, there's a lot of hurdles put in this person's way, but we don't want a bunch of these happening. And so I think that in order for, at least for me to be satisfied, we need a whole lot more of a general framework that would be set out. Like you would only get this consideration if these things were the case in your business. And I think that we need to send this back to the drawing board, maybe work with Diane or, some people as well as the solicitor to come up with what those restrictions should be, because there's a lot of good reasons why in this case we may approve it, but there's a lot of good reasons why we should not want this to happen more than very, very, very rarely. So that's my thought about it.
You know what? It's funny that you brought that up, Mary, because when we were talking about it at the last meeting, I was thinking something along those same lines. And then when we got the ordinance this time, I was like, oh, we were just on totally different wavelengths when we were having a conversation about this. Because what I was thinking was, okay, if we're going to be giving out any Class C licenses, then we need to have like some sort of ordinance or a policy that says something along the lines of, this can only be given out if it's for some sort of really narrowly tailored reason. So it has to be like perhaps like a recreational activity that, is not a year-long recreational activity where it is absolutely not feasible to have prepared food or have the infrastructure that would allow for prepared food to be delivered to people and things like that. So,
and I think that the cost would be prohibitive to establish that
yeah.
building and things like that. It may not be appropriate, like on a golf course, if there's wetlands or whatever the case may be. And I think you and I did speak specifically about that kind of a framework. And so it wasn't what we ended up getting. And so I think that does need to go back. So maybe it's, I don't want to say it's good that this poor man has an emergency, so I don't mean it that way. But if we put it off, it might have gotten put off anyway because of that. So I'm not sure, Diane, I don't know how I think it needs to be like community development and anybody who has any ideas on what that should be. I mean, I think we all could brainstorm different things, but it has to be very, 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 very limited and very tightly drafted so that we're not facing this. except on the rare occasions, like this golf course.
Yeah, and I just want to be very clear too. I do appreciate the work that went into
Mhm.
what was put before us and everything like that. I think it was just clear that there was, like I said, different wavelengths.
Right.
Like we were thinking this way and others were thinking that way. I think to nobody's fault.
No, I think you probably want to have those limits on any particular license, and that's what we got. But it doesn't stop people from coming in.
Right.
And really thinking twice about asking for it.
I reached out to the applicant colleagues in regards to just understanding a business plan to find out how the alcohol and the prepared food was going to be served and how he was going to basically regulate how much food to have based on the months, from the summer months into the fall months. So we would have sort of an understanding that nobody could really get entirely intoxicated and show up there and go to get some food and there's no food. You know what I mean? Like, how is he going to be able to manage all of that? He said he was going to put together a plan and he was going to put it in our packet, but I didn't see anything. So I think based on everything that everybody's been saying, I think we'll make a motion to continue this to the next meeting, the May 29th meeting.
Second.
It sounds like we need more information.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Mary to continue to our May 29th meetings discussion. So I'll just take a couple of things. One, I agree. So, and then to expand upon that, the council, as we all know, only create licenses as needed. So there's not licenses out there that if we don't tighten this up too much that anybody can take. Mary's point is absolutely valid though, and so is Tim's, that what we want to do is give an expectation of what's necessary for a Class C. As Mary also said, and we've all said, we don't have a Class C right now. The distinction is that a Class BV or a Class BV Limited means a restaurant. That's the best way to kind of explain it. And that requires food preparation, it requires sewer, it requires water. And those things are a challenge here. And what we don't want to do is open up the floodgates for people being able to ask or even have the dialogue about it. We want to put in place that they look at this and they say, oh, I see. It's an onerous and uphill battle to get this. It does. So I can't just come in front of the council and ask. And they can, but the expectation will be, it will be denied. I do agree with the requiring, we need more clarity on how he's going to handle the food, because this is a new world and it's going to need that next level of it. I agree that we also need to make sure that we clearly encompass what our concerns are. I know for myself, I expressed serious concerns at the last council meeting. I still have those concerns, but let me say this. I don't have a problem with beer and wine served or hard seltzer served on the golf course. I don't think that's inappropriate, done correctly. And I don't want, and I think we all agree on this, that allowing this to open it up and allow for other things unintended. And this is a public course where kids are going to be, where other people are going to be, that we do not want this to turn into something that's other than family friendly and family safe, right? We all want this. This whole town wants that. Mr. Administrator, you want to share something?
Oh, yeah, I just want to make sure that we're clear. And by the way, the zoning official and also the solicitor did weigh in on those recommendations. So what we can do is, and I just want this out in the open, we will, as part of this license recommendation, it will be as long as there is no potable water within or public water within so many feet, as long as you're provided this license, as long as there isn't sewage within so many feet, as long as you are a seasonal business. So we'll be able to put those into the next recommendation. I just wanted that so we don't not waste time, but prolong this, and you have the information you're looking for. So I wanted the solicitor to hear this because that's what we'll be proposing next.
I think that goes with the C license, though, not just with this particular petitioner. Like the stuff that you had was with this petitioner. I think that remains in place.
So Mary, everything that you've all referenced this evening, what Steve was kind of repeating, we can put all of that into requirements that you can impose if you decide to actually issue the C license. But all these restrictions we're talking about can't be part of the C license creation. Just like with the B license creations, you have restrictions on the time of day. Those come if you award the license and then they become appended to the license. The other thing I want to give you assurance on, and Nathan referenced it, is if you create this one license, no town council is obligated to ever create a second, third, or fourth. Same with your Bs. And there's a Rhode Island Supreme Court case directly on point that says you have total control as to how many licenses. And just because someone has a C or a B or a D, and someone else comes and says, please create a new license for me because you did it for him or her, you are under zero obligation to, there's no precedent value. You take each request totally on its merits. You decide you don't want to create one, you don't have to. So I just want to let you know you have that control.
Can I just say one thing, though? Two things. One is, I know we have that control, but it becomes like precedent setting when you do it, because we've seen that with lots of other licenses, like our regular restaurant licenses, our limited licenses. It's like, well, this coffee shop needs to serve wine and beer with lunch. Now every coffee shop and pizza shop needs to serve wine and beer with lunch. So, I mean, I understand the point, but, and I want to make sure that when someone thinks about getting a C license, that, here are the guidelines that they're getting beforehand, not just appended to the license, but, here's the guidelines. If you're even going to come and ask for it, it's going to be difficult, because this is what you're going to be required to have to overcome. Or
we can do that. It won't be part of the actual ordinance, but we can do a series of guidelines that will relate to that ordinance.
Right.
We'll prepare that for you.
Mr. Minister?
So how are we going to determine the amount of feet and all that? To know.
like, how far should it be water? Like, if the water is 2 feet away, they could easily bring that in. So it needs to be like a substantial distance,
Okay.
I would think, but I don't know what that distance is.
yeah,
I mean, that's why I would turn to like
didn't
the
know.
other departments, because I don't have any idea on that.
Okay.
We'll figure that out, but just for further clarity to my original comments. So we're going to provide general guidelines for Class C licenses, not specifically for the Bristol Golf Park, right?
That's what I would like.
And
to
then we
see.
have specifics already suggested for the golf course. So,
As far as how they would operate.
Correct.
with the-
correct.
okay. And we already provided those. So
Right.
we're looking for some guidelines that would be.
Good quite a wall.
Okay, all right.
And for the record, for the applicant, the request for clarity on how he's going to handle food as presented by Tim. If we need clarity on that. What we have right now is not enough. And because Class C does not exist and it's a little bit looser than we're used to, we need tighter information from the applicant. So please do not come to this next meeting without it. How's that?
Yeah, you
So-
can't just call Uber Eats when you have a customer and that
Correct.
wants food or
That's
something.
what I was thinking. Like, they're gonna like put an order into like the various pizza places or sandwich shops.
Weirdly, I'm hungry right now. So
I know.
any other discussion? Any clarity needed before we take this vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, everyone.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I1. This is Town Treasurer Hassel. This is in regards to Haig, Shahady and Co. This is the presentation for the fiscal year 2023 annual fiscal financial statements.
Hi, Carl.
Hello.
You want to
think-
start this off?
Sure, I think the auditors are here and they can present right now, right? Thanks.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Taylor Matthews, and I was the audit supervisor on the fiscal year 2023 financial statement audit.
Hi, Taylor.
I'd first like to start off by thanking Sarah and everyone at the town hall that helped her with a smooth and successful audit this year. So I'm just going to go ahead and take you guys through the financial statements, point out some things as we go through them. So on page 1 of the financial statements is the auditor's opinion on the financial statements. And I just want to point out that the town received a clean or an unmodified report, meaning that there were no findings. I would also like to point out that we did not issue any management letter comments in the current year. And then on page 4 begins the management discussion and analysis, which provides an objectively easily readable analysis of financial highlights. And it also will provide comparative information for the statement of net position and statement of activities in a consolidated format. So it will just kind of show you the difference on your profit and loss and your balance sheet from 2023 to 2022. You can kind of see some changes that you had there. And then on pages 12 through 15, you'll see the town of Bristol's government-wide financial statements. And so the government-wide financial statements report information about the town as a whole using accounting methods that are similar to those used by private sector companies. The statement of net position includes all of the government's assets, deferred outflows of resources, liabilities, and deferred inflows of resources. So this means on these statements, you will see your fixed assets, your long-term debt, your pension liabilities, your OPEB assets are all included on these statements there. Whereas when you look at page 16, you will find your governmental funds, which these show all your basic services that are financed through governmental funds, and governmental funds are used to account for essentially the same functions that are reported as governmental activities in the government-wide financial statements. However, unlike the governmental fund statements, the governmental funds focus on near-term inflows and outflows of spendable resources. So this here, you won't see your fixed assets or your long-term debt. And the town, you can see, maintains many governmental funds, but there are 2 that are considered major funds. And that means they're presented in their own column on the face of the financial statements. And these 2 funds are the general fund and the open space bonded projects fund. And some highlights from these governmental funds. So at the close of the fiscal year, the town's governmental funds reported a combined ending fund balance of $19.4 million. And out of that $19.4 million, $5.8 million of that is unassigned for the general fund and is available for the use at the government's discretion. The remaining fund balance amount included $3.4 million in non-spendable fund balance, which are amounts that cannot be spent because they're either 1, not in spendable form, or 2, they're legally required to remain intact. $10.7 million in restricted fund balance, which are amounts that have been restricted for specific purposes, either by creditors, grantors, or laws or regulations. You have 2.3 in committed fund balance, which are amounts that the town council, as the town's highest level of decision-making authority, may commit for specific purposes. And then you have 7,000 in assigned fund balance. And these are amounts that are intended by the town for use in specific purposes, but are neither restricted nor committed. And at the end of the fiscal year, the town's general fund had an operating surplus of $250,000. Then on pages 20 through 23, you will see the proprietary fund. The town only has 1 proprietary fund, which is the sewer fund. And at the end of the fiscal year 23, the total net position for this fund was $23.4 million, which was an increase over last year by $121,000. On pages 24 through 25, you'll see the fiduciary funds, and fiduciary funds are used to account for resources held for the benefits of parties outside the government. So the town has an OPEB plan, which is currently funded at 124.08%. So when you look on the government-wide, you'll actually see this as an asset because it's more than 100% funded. The town also has a private police pension trust, and that currently is funded at 65.22%, which is an increase from last year from 59.14%. And the town also does participate in the MERS pension plans that are run by the state. The town has 3 that they participate for MERS. They have the police and fire plans, which you will also see as assets on the government-wide financial statements, meaning that they are considered 100% funded. And then the general employees plan, which was a liability of $5.4 million, but it is 80% funded. And then on pages 26 through 91, you will see the notes to the financial statements. And these notes actually just provide more detail of information that are presented on the face of your financial statements. So you'll see detail about your fixed assets, your long-term debt broken out, as well as your fund balance classifications. And then on pages 94 is the presentation of the general fund budget to actual. And so some highlights from that: the general fund ended with revenue recorded in the amount of $1.5 million in excess of budgeted amounts. And your major favorable variances where you had 1.5 million more in intergovernmental revenues, and your interest income actually came in above budget as well by 454,000. Your expenditures ended the year with an unfavorable variance of 293,000. And some of those variances, you'll see that public safety was overspent by 244,000. Public works was underspent by 183,000. Payroll and taxes and benefits were also overspent by 293,000. And then capital outlay was underspent by 191,000. And then on page 116, this begins your supplemental information. And this section includes your MTP2, your tax collector's report, as well as the town's fund financial statements. So on the governmental fund, you'll see a column that's all other non-major funds. In the back, we actually break each individual fund out so you can go and look and see where those numbers come from. And then on page 160 is the auditor's report, which regarding internal controls. And again, this was a clean report and there were no findings. And I'd also like to point out that the town did qualify for a single audit in the current year. And we had to test one program, which was the American Rescue Plan Act. And once again, there were no issues and it was a clean report.
So Sarah, there was a handful of people that understood everything that you said. I'm just calling it what it is. I'm going to paraphrase and tell me anywhere that you disagree. So the town is in wonderful financial condition. There's always improvement that can be made. You heard some positives and negatives in spending. You heard that we have an OPEB that is funded by at 124%. You heard the police and fire funded at 100%. You heard our local police fund funded at 80%, if I recall correctly, all 62%.
65.22.
You guys are listening. Good for you. Good for you. So what you're hearing, I had 69%. Isn't that interesting? Those are phenomenal things. And there are other communities that are funding the pension of the good men and women that worked for the town, whether it was police department, DPW, this town hall, anybody. There are a lot of communities that can't, don't, won't. And this community has done those plus all the other things. This is not a look at how cool we are, maybe a little bit. That doesn't come by accident. And that is the good men and women that this council is looking at right now that have done what they've done. It is a reflection directly on this council and past councils. It's a reflection on the administrator, it's on the clerk, everyone here. It is a big deal. And it is me saying it right now, but a third-party professional, which is required to look at our documentation and finances, concur. And in fact, we have this all recorded. We may use this. So it's outstanding information. So did I capture that okay?
You did great.
Okay, wonderful. We are healthy. Yes.
Healthy.
Yes.
Interesting, listening to the OPEB, and some of these things are really down my aisle, but the OPEB, it's interesting to hear that we are over 100 and change, right?
124.
Right, 124, thank you. I got 100, I know it was over, so that's wonderful to hear that we've gone that direction, because that certainly provides for our our employees into retirement, to help pay for their medical, and so it's wonderful to hear that. It's a good way to take responsibility and continue to support them after employment.
My dad says that you can tell a good restaurant by how clean the bathrooms are. And that's a great way of looking at it's how good things are done on the things that you don't see. Roads are important. They're infinitely important. Schools are important, but the things that you don't see are wildly important, and they're being taken care of. So,
And,
Mr. Min-
and Mr. Chairman, the bathrooms here in the town hall are very
They
clean.
are very
They're
nice.
very clean.
See, my dad would be proud, right?
Well, it's not a restaurant yet, anyway, right?
Well,
Maybe we
true.
have to have some sandwiches.
Mr. Administrator?
I just wanted to add about the OPED pension fund, the OPED contribution that the employees make. That is also used to offset our medical contribution. So we did take a distribution from that this, Carl, how much was it? Do you remember?
I believe it was 800.
So we took $800,000. That's why the medical insurance, the co-shares didn't go up for all of our employees, 215 employees. Not all of them have medical, but so that's another benefit of having a healthy OPEB fund. Thanks for bringing that up, Mr. Texer.
I can live there because I'm trying to work this out elsewhere. Because taking the example that we've done here, being very aware of what we've done over the years, certainly trying to do the same elsewhere, follow the example.
As healthy and open as we go.
One
Can I ask you
last
just
point.
a
I'm sorry, but this is important. Also, Mr. Hewitt serves on the board.
Thank you.
Could I just ask a quick question, just for my own clarification? You said the MERS was 80% funded for
So-
the,
For the general employees, so it's still a
Yeah.
liability.
so why is it in, I'm just curious, like, why is it in 100%? Because it's, aren't we paying, don't we pay in, or every community pays in like the 100%? Or is it because? Like,
Because that's what's being recommended that we do, if my recollection is correct. So
80% is very healthy. So they're run by the state. So those
Right.
contributions just go directly to the state. So it's just how much you would have to pay out in that pension versus what they're saying your investment is in it. So that's what they're comparing it to. So you probably, I would assume, I do have them, that you have more general employees than you do fire and police in their own
Right.
individual plans, so that the liability is higher. So it needs more money to fund it versus the police and fire, which have less employees in those plans.
Thank you. So is that the reason that each of these MERS plans are different, like from town to town and from, this group of employees and that group of employees, it's all different?
It's all different.
It's because of
usually-
that?
Yes,
Oh,
based
okay.
on the numbers that are in there,
number
how
of
long they've been in the
retirees.
MERS program. There are a lot of factors that the actuaries look at
Mhm,
to
mhm.
come up with these numbers.
Okay, thank you.
And obviously, none of us need to remind you, what the pension went through.
Oh, I know,
And that being said, we are in a very healthy position because as you recall, many of them, they could not meet their payments. We've been able to do that. And even though you would assume, well, shouldn't we be 100%? That would be ideal. However, due to the circumstances where we required to make as a contribution, we are meeting the 100%.
Yeah,
Interesting.
we're very lucky and strong and healthy. I look at other towns that are neighboring to us and their financial situation is dire. So we're extremely lucky. You mentioned some overspends and underspends in areas. And Carl, I was just curious for the next upcoming budget, are there anything we need to be putting in place or thinking about to making sure those level out, or are those sort of little outliers?
Yeah, that's something that we can, I'll have those figures for you next meeting. I can unpack that for you to see if there's
Great.
any recommendations for that. Yep.
Well, I heard Taylor say too that we had a operating fund balance of 250. So the net was actually an increase.
Yes.
I took pretty good notes.
You
Thank you
did,
very
you
much.
did. You're on the
I
ball.
think the public safety overrun was vehicle maintenance mainly and the emergency services. But we've put more money into that during the budget process.
Remind this council what the motion is on this, please.
The motion would be to accept these financial statements as presented.
So move.
Second,
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim, as stated. Discussion?
Yes, very briefly, I'd like to thank you, the auditors. They always do a fine job and they look very familiar to me elsewhere too, so.
Any other discussion?
thank you.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I2. This is Mary Ann Quinn, Senior Service Coordinator. This is in regard to the AARP Age-Friendly Townwide Survey.
Hi, Marianne.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Mary Ann Quinn, Senior Service Coordinator. So we are in our first year of the age-friendly designation. And so as part of that program process with AARP is that we conduct a community needs assessment. This is something that AARP, to clarify, has provided for us. We didn't come up with the survey. It is the AARP's age-friendly survey. We have already started with that survey. We're about a couple weeks in. We launched it on the town website, as well as having copies, paper copies available to people who would want to fill out the survey. The survey is for Bristol residents, 45 and older. It goes into the ARPs, like there are 8 domains of livability for an age-friendly community, touching on some of those: housing, transportation, social participation, health services. And the purpose of the survey is to kind of gauge where we are as a community and to then develop an action plan following the completion of that survey if there's areas that we need to improve upon. And so we had the survey out the end of the month. We're projecting that we're going to kind of close down the survey. They had asked us to probably look to reach about 500. We are currently at about 200 that have been done online. About 50 so far that have been handwritten that we've given out for people to handwrite them. And then those will be inputted through ARP into the survey. We have plans to do 2. One is a function that we're going to probably have, I believe it's the 15th that I have it scheduled for, more of an informal coffee, lunch type of thing, so that we can again try to get to some people that might not have access to the computer. We've also been in contact with the Senior Center and Franklin Court to help us to get the survey out so that we could, hopefully meet that 500 number.
I would hope that you would get more than that. Like I was going to ask you,
Yeah.
like what are your outreach strategies? Because I wasn't really familiar with it until I saw it in the
Okay.
packet here, and so that people know it's out there. Like, how did you
Right.
get those 200? Like, how do people know it's out there? Are you promoting it on social media?
Right,
or-
so we
or
have
is-
promoted it on social media. We have promoted it in the Phoenix. We have done the link when Eric uploaded it to the website for us. It was on towards the front page of the website there for a couple of weeks. The link has been publicized, as well as, and I have this here, we have also done the QR code so that people can access it that way. If they're not able to go to the website, they could also access through the QR code. And so we're looking to, push that out a little bit more.
Is that
Yes.
available at the post office, at the library?
Yes, so
all
we
these
have
places?
posted, yes. So we have posted it is up at the post office, as well as at the library. It did go out with our monthly newsletter, which for our Mind, Body, and meaning us, Parks and Recreation, we have about 2,000 people on that database. So it went out to them as well. And then we're just trying to work through, that's why we're going to try to do some more in-person types of things in case people are having difficulty with the computer aspect of it. And so that we can see where some of that is falling to the side.
So is it, so you get a lot of people coming in during the day
Right,
at the rec
right.
center, and a lot of them are seniors or retired
Yes,
people?
yep.
Is it there in
Yep, so,
you're grabbing
yep,
them to
so-
go in the room and fill it out? Or
Absolutely. So we've been handing it out. We had our resource fair last week, at which we handed out a lot of them that they could just fill it out and bring it back to us. Or again, giving them out the link that they could do it online. And so we're going to continue to do that. I have some here with me to leave here at the town hall so that people can fill them out and bring them back. Or I can collect them here, as well as looking to push the link and the QR code out more.
Could you put it in the church bulletins, maybe with the QR?
Church bulletin?
You know, something like that. I mean, I think it would be important because, you know, and people who are watching here, the best place would be to just go on the town website. Is that what would you suggest?
It is very easy if you're on the town website to just click the link, just brings you right to the survey.
Yeah, this is interesting because these questions have been asked over again and what we need. It also brings back long ago memories because one of my first projects, I think it was in graduate school, was a needs assessment for Rentham Council on Aging during the summer. I was like an intern. Yeah.
Right. So we did get the information out to a lot of the organizations that were there at the resource fair. So we're hoping to get some more of that back.
Good.
Yes,
Thank you.
but I appreciate that
Tony?
suggestion.
Do you know? Marianne, did you reach out to the to the senior center
Yes.
with some of them?
Yes, so I
Okay.
did. Yep. So we're gonna
Awesome.
actually go to the community room
Okay.
at Benjamin Church, as well as during their lunch so that they can have and then Franklin Court as well. Yes. We have
Super.
touched
Thank
base
you.
with them. Yep.
Marianne, a couple of questions for you,
Yep.
just more of a process thing. I'm on the Bristol website right now. I think I heard Aaron say the same thing. I didn't see anything here. I believe it's here. So
Okay.
I don't see it.
It may
So,
have just gotten shuffled.
and it's okay. Maybe we
Yeah.
can, since it's turning into critical time, maybe we can
Okay.
move it forward. That would be
Sure.
one. Two is how many questions, how much time can someone
Yeah,
expect
so
to
it is
spend?
a little bit of a lengthy survey, and that is some of the feedback that that we have received, and it's feedback that I've given back to AARP. It's probably a good 15 minutes, which to some people is like, okay, this is supposed to be kind of quick. So it is a little lengthy. This is the paper one and just looking at it, but you know, I think one of the things so it's about 15 minutes. And then to do the handwritten one, probably about the same. So that's why we've been kind of encouraging people to either, you know, take the packet home. People that have been coming into our building, take it home, come back, bring it back to us, you know, go home, have a cup of coffee, snack, fill it out and bring it back to us. So, yeah.
It sounds like part of it might be just, it's a bit arduous. I know that when my insurance company asked me if I'll take a quick survey, I
No, so
usually
it
say no.
does- Yeah, no, absolutely. And that is some of the feedback that I have given back to them, that it is a little lengthy. And
So why don't we do this then? Let's take a moment and say it's important. The town would benefit from this information. If you've got 15 minutes, it can actually move the needle on decisions that are made. So if we can move it forward on this, I heard suggestions about putting in church bulletin and
that's great.
other places like that. How much time do you have left to get
We can extend it. At the moment, the deadline is the end of this month, but AARP will allow us to extend it if we need to extend it. It's not, I mean, they obviously want us to get the most information that we can. So we could ask for an extension if we're not seeing the numbers that we want to see.
I think there's a lot of events coming up too. Like I know Friday there's that clam cakes and chowder,
Right.
you know, at St. Mary's. There's
Yep.
like 3 weekends of the Portuguese feast, 2 or 3 weekends.
Mhm.
I mean, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3. You know, there's just a lot of stuff coming up and people will be out and about. And I think it's important. And you said the age range of like 45 and up. I mean, that's pretty, you know, it's a
Right.
big
And that was
group.
the other thing that,
Yeah.
that we had.
And I don't know if
kind
it breaks it down, like, you know, the needs for people who are 45 to say 55 or 60 is different than
of older.
80-year-olds.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
And if you get one back with clam chowder on it, we know.
Well, we know that it was a
What you were
successful, right?
What do you need? You need do you need any action from the council, or is this was to make sure
I
that
think
the
it-
public was knowing?
Right, more of an informational
Outstanding.
and support of the fact that we have this going on right now, and then obviously getting some ideas too.
So if you're the
And-
public and you're interested, please be interested. If you're interested in doing it, we'll have some here. We'll have it on the website. You can go to the Recreation Quinta Gamlin and pick some up. Anywhere else that I can, you can suggest?
Any social media? Are we doing
We have been
Facebook
doing
or?
it on social media on
Okay, yeah.
ours. Maybe we can do it on the, I'll talk with Eric is doing it on the town.
That'd be great.
That would be
One
great.
as well. Yeah, because
Yeah.
we've done it on Parks and Recreation, but to get it on the
What
town.
about Round Town Bristol? I mean, Rayona,
Yep.
she could get that out.
Yes.
That would put a lot of people on it.
Yeah, I do. Yep. Yep.
So we just need a
Yes,
motion to receive and
yes.
file.
What's the age on that again?
43?
So move.
Second,
All of us better be filling that thing out.
All right, thank you.
So we
Thank
had
you,
a
Mary
motion.
Ann.
Is there a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mary
you.
Ann.
Thanks, Mary Ann.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I3. This is Director Williamson from Department of Community Development, and this is in regards to the June 4, 2024 workshop for Route 114 Resilience Plan.
Diane?
Hello. So this is also something to inform you and the public about, and this is a very important project. It's a unique partnership. We have grant funds through the statewide planning. We have a steering committee, which is includes DOT, RIPTA, and the towns of Bristol, Warren, and Barrington. And the idea is to study the Route 114 corridor through these towns, look at existing conditions, assess areas of vulnerability, come up with a plan to implement updates or improvements to those sections that we can hopefully get more grant funding to build and to do. Well, it would be a partnership with the state because 114 is a state road. So we're trying to get the word out that we're starting the public engagement process. There are public hearings scheduled. Bristol, I nominated Bristol to be the first public workshop, which is June 4th. So it's a really good opportunity for people to come out. We want to hear from folks about their experiences, their ideas, what's important about these areas, and how we can maybe help become more resilient to the increased tides that create traffic and transportation issues for this corridor.
So Diane, so if I understand it right, the state gave a grant and then it's kind of like divvying up the pie and we're focused on our area so they can know where the issues are
Right,
and then obviously we're focused on Bristol. So,
exactly.
and then our goal locally is to get the public to engage and with multiple eyes, we can focus on the most critical portions. Is that?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's two, so you're correct. So they've hired the Fuss and O'Neill consultant team to do the plan. They are looking at existing conditions and then we'll move forward into ideas for improvements. Bristol has two areas of vulnerability, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, Silver Creek and Walker's Cove. And so those are, they have a particular chapter in the plan, just focusing on Bristol. Warren has one area of vulnerability and Barrington, I think, has 4 or 5. So, but each of these areas, even though they're unique to each municipality, they affect the whole
Sure.
region because you can't move through the corridor. So, so so I'm hoping that people will come to the workshop and start to engage. And there's a project website, and we'll have many more meetings after the first one, which is June 4th.
This is another website, kind of get it out there through the town website and
Yes.
obviously this meeting this evening?
Yes,
So-
Eric has also put up a news release for the town, and the workshop's still a few weeks out, so we're going to continue to ramp up the notifications and public engagement information for folks so they can participate.
Will it be televised?
We are going to, it will be through the Zoom.
Okay,
We're going
great.
to create a Zoom recording
Yep.
that we can then play, have on the project website.
Is
Great.
it here?
Yes, it will be
here?
in town hall, yes.
Any other questions from the council? We just need to receive and file.
Thank you.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Diane.
Diane.
Thank you.
So Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I4. This is the Bristol Police Department, and this is for a request for support for the 7th Annual Children's Leadership Camp for August 2024.
I was wondering why you were standing there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's good or bad to go after the auditors, right? When you're asking for money.
Well, after that report, come on down. You got it. Yeah.
Good.
So this is our seventh consecutive year running the Bristol Police Leadership Camp. We've had tremendous success with the camp. But what we've found in the last few years is our costs have really outpaced our resources. So we're coming before you again to humbly ask for whatever financial support that you can provide us. We've had really good turnout. Our camp filled up this year on the first day that it opened. This year, we have the largest enrollment that we've ever had, and we have the largest cadre of returning campers coming back as counselors, as evidence that the camp is working to create peer leaders. We have a dozen former campers that have come back and volunteered to assist us and offset our staffing costs, obviously, to be able to push through our largest enrollment so far.
What's the age range here?
So we strive for anywhere from 9 to 13.
9 to 13.
10 is perfect. We have allowed younger campers when they fit sort of the maturity level, the physical ability, because we run one camp. So to have a 14-year-old trying to compete with an 8-year-old, that 8-year-old suffers. So like I said, we have a dozen 13, 14-year-olds coming back to assist us in helping those younger campers get through that experience. So it's been a very meaningful experience for a lot of campers. In the last few years, I'd say the last 5 years, we have not increased any of the fees for our camp. And under Chief Lynch's leadership, we have not charged anyone that can't afford the camp. So we humbly request whatever you can provide us to assist us to be able to provide the same level of experience that we have been in the past.
I'm turning your mic off. This guy's dangerous.
Well, I think we're all in big support. We know this is changes society for the better. I'll definitely put a motion out there to support the 1,500 that you requested out of contingency.
I'll second that.
Ooh, wait a
See how
minute,
quickly
excuse me,
everybody's
I
just
thought
ask-
we said 1,705.
This
Really,
doesn't
I
have to
was
be a
trying to get the
unanimous
number
vote,
from
Tony.
Carl.
So
Carl, how much do we have left?
Yeah, do you want your balance in the
Yes,
account?
please,
It's
for the
40
contingent.
It's 4,600.
So we can afford, it's at least 1,600 then.
there's a motion and a second.
Oh, wait a minute, folks, come on, who's going to reconsider that?
The reason why you're hearing all this joking around is that we've had a couple of items that Tony prodded the council, and appropriately so. And we went up significantly from all of that, but I know that Lieutenant's asking for the 15 that was there before, and it sounds like that will support things nicely. And we want to make sure we can support next year, and 16 may break the bank, so we'll stay at that 15. And we had a motion and a second. Is there any other
I
discussion?
just had a quick question.
ahead.
Have you applied for any other funds, like
We
grants?
do.
I mean, in other words, like Learn 365, which I think that application was last, I don't know about Bristol.
So
but-
we have applied for several other funding sources. We've been awarded several other funding
But
sources.
you have other
Yep,
sources. yeah.
absolutely. This isn't our sole source of
So
funding.
what is the total budget for it, roughly?
Annually, about 10,500.
Okay.
So.
A large part of the cost comes, we take the campers to a ropes, a challenge, a
Mhm.
leadership course, with the busing
Mhm.
and the fee to go to that park. That's where a lot of cost that goes with it.
Yeah.
And I would like to credit, certainly Lieutenant St. Pierre. This was his original creation. And
Nice job, Lieutenant.
It's grown
Yeah,
since I
nice job.
became the police chief, and I appreciate the funding. I was raised on free camp as a youngster with financial difficulties, raised in a single family home, and I've always wanted to provide that opportunity to other youth in the community. And this year here, on top of other communities, Tiverton, is it correct, Tiverton?
Tiverton this year.
Tiverton this year is sending an officer down to shadow the Bristol program. We've had Portsmouth and East Providence come along and to learn from the program that the Bristol Police Department has. I can tell you that this program is the hallmark of police leadership camps in the region.
No, great.
That's great.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. Yes, doing a great
And-
job.
Any other discussion? Here we go.
Yes, well, we can't change the vote, so, no, but certainly, I enjoyed hearing that Lieutenant Saint-Pierre started the program, and obviously not only that, but he's also very involved with the youth as a whole, as a CCD instructor as well. So we appreciate very much what you do for our youth.
Thank you, Tony.
Well said, Tony. You just spent $100 right there, so.
Uh,
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Well,
Would you share the outcome of this year's camp with this
Absolutely.
council?
I'll be back next year asking for more money.
See that? I was hoping for sooner than that, actually. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I6, and this is Town Council Chairman. This is in regards to discussion and possible modifications to ordinance 2024-08 for the boat stocks and waterway insurance requirements for the town marina.
So I had this put back on the agenda after the harbor master reached out for clarity on the liability limits. As this council recalls, we had a lot of discussion about requiring boat insurance for use if your boat is on the town dock, then having boat insurance requirement. And this council included discussion about requiring 250,000. The initial conversations was higher than that, but the final motion and how it was recorded did not include the 250,000. Reached out to the solicitor and asked for guidance on what next steps were. And Mr. Solicitor, if you could share it with everybody.
Yeah, the best way to handle this is a slight modification to the ordinance that you've already adopted by inserting that $250,000 requirement, which was deemed adequate for the town and fair to the boaters. So what I recommend is that you just refer this to me. I will get to the clerk's office, a modified ordinance with that number plugged in, and we'll do first and second reading.
So moved.
second,
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony, as stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Can I ask before we go into, oh no, we have a couple of other things. If I could ask, I didn't say it earlier, I apologize. If I could get a motion to pull GG4 from the consent agenda, we could just put that here real quick.
So move.
Second.
All in, so that was
Aaron.
motion made by Tony, seconded by Aaron. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So GG4 in the consent agenda is two things. It's Sarah Hassel is leaving us and going to another community. And just, I wanted to take a moment on behalf of the council and the town to thank her for the time and obviously direct reflection on the report that we just had recently, along with you, sir, Carl. Outstanding job. And that is not just solely both of you. There's a lot of things that go into that, but back to Sarah. She's been, Mr. Administrator, how long has Sarah been here? Is it 2 years, a year and a half?
Yeah, just under 2 years.
Just so Sarah was a valuable member of the team. She'll be missed. In that GG4 also includes Carl is going to be the interim treasurer. And Mr. Administrator, I understand we have advertising out for,
Yes.
if you want to fill that in.
Yeah, it'll be in the local newspaper. It's on our website and also our local municipal outlets.
So again, I just wanted to say congratulations on behalf of this council to Sarah and her next endeavors. She was a valuable member of the team. We'll miss her. And congratulations to you, Carl, as the interim. And I think you would potentially be an outstanding person for that role too. So any other discussion?
Watch those dollars, Carl.
Sorry?
Watch those dollars. You got it.
Can I have a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
So move.
So a motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to receive and file. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, everyone.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, the next item on the agenda is K1. This is the Bristol County Water Authority Tri-Town Monthly Report Summary for notable activities and reports. It also includes 3 project sheets, one for Bristol, Warren, and Barrington.
Motion to receive and file.
Second,
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony, receive and file. Any discussion?
just briefly, the flushing will be taking place during the month of May in Bristol. So people need to be cautious if any flushing is taking place near their homes to run their water for a period of time. So you don't end up with a lot of yellowish
So you're speaking of fire hydrants,
fire
right?
hydrants.
Okay,
Yes.
just wanted
Thank you.
clarity on that.
Yes. Certainly flushing. Yeah.
Lots of
Good
flushing.
clarification.
Okay.
Good clarification there.
Just
Yes.
needed some clarity.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Potty humor is absolutely outstanding. You just don't get the option often, so.
The next item on the agenda is L1. This is Town Solicitor, and this is in regard to legislation promoting the repurposing of abandoned school buildings for affordable housing.
So this was put on the agenda from a public comment at our last meeting from Mr. Hewitt. Mr. Solicitor, could you speak to this?
Absolutely. As you recall, Mr. Hewitt asked about the legislation regarding something that might potentially affect the Gutierrez School that is no longer used, or for that matter, any school that's no longer used. Basically, what happened is back in 2022, the legislature adopted a law which requires that every municipality that has not yet met the 10% affordable housing threshold in Bristol, we're not quite there yet, so it affects us, to annually provide the Rhode Island Department of Education with a list of the buildings that are no longer being used for school purposes. And what the legislation also does is it says, once that list is provided, a task force is set up to determine if the building could feasibly be changed or reconditioned for affordable housing. I will note that that task force does, the legislation does require that there's municipal input on that task force. So if this were to happen, there'd be appointees from the town council to be part of the task force. So, but, and here's the big but, as long as the town retains title to the building, the state law does not mandate nor does it require that you have to use it for affordable housing. And even if the town desires to sell the building or the property at some future point, it's allowed to sell it with a restriction, restricting the developer to develop the property in a way the town wants to see it developed. And so in that respect, you're not forced to sell it for affordable housing. So it's more of a policy out there that says, hey, if you've got these empty school buildings, then we can turn it into affordable housing. Municipality, we want you to consider that. We want you to look at that. We, the state, will put up money to help developers pay for the conversion, et cetera, if it makes sense in your community. If it doesn't, you have total control, whether you keep the title and use it for municipal purposes, or whether you sell it and you put restrictions on what the purposes are that can be used. So that's the follow-up to Mr. Hewitt's question.
Could I just ask you a question about
Sure.
that? So, I mean, when they talk about affordable housing, I think they would be talking about the building becoming 100% affordable units.
That's correct.
Now, is there, so what we've been doing is like the 10 to 20% affordable units within a complex, like if we were to do that, we'd be putting some aside for affordable anyway.
We could add that restriction, yes.
So that, I mean, but if we did that, that is still up to us. It's not going to be, they're not going to mandate this. I mean, I think there's a real concern, especially given everything else that's going on with, you know, legislation and how it impacts the communities and some stuff that's not particularly clear sometimes. So is
Or
there
is
anything?
clearly bad, right?
Or clearly
So,
bad.
yeah.
Yeah, Mary, I totally understand your question. The only thing that's mandatory is that we do have to report the building to Rhode Island Department of Education. That we must do that report. And they could decide whether or not they want to set up the task force. But my experience is they're not going to do that if there's no real sentiment within the community to make that happen. In other words, they're not going to go through all that whole process if in the end, the council community is going to decide, you know, this isn't the right space or the right place or the right set of conditions to develop an affordable housing project there. It probably won't even get to that point. I just want to reassure you have ultimate control.
Now, as far as
It
the
will be
other
forced on you.
buildings that have been given back to the town in past years, they're not impacted at all
No.
by this.
No.
So only because, and I mean, I think one of the things with this issue, like, we haven't really had any discussion about what to do with this building, because I think it came as a surprise to most of us that this was gonna go on, was gonna be abandoned as a school. And, and I think we had plenty of meetings about the bond issue and things like that. And, I think I was surprised when it came out in the Phoenix, and I know maybe my colleagues were too, but certainly family members and everything else. So, that's a great place for housing, I'm sure, but whether or not you could withstand that density in that location, I'm not sure. So, I mean, I think we have to give some serious thought to it. And when I heard this from Pete the last meeting, I was like, oh my gosh, so thank you for pulling this out for us and, so we can have it in hand.
And I just wanted to clarify, Mike, when we talk about affordable, some people get Section 8 housing mixed up with affordable housing.
Yes, they do.
And so, they kind of marry the two, and they're very, very separate
Extremely.
types of housing. So we're still in control, is what you're saying,
Total control.
about what we can do
Total.
with that property when that time comes. And that includes that huge piece of open space
Yes,
behind it as
it
well.
certainly does.
So that comes along with that school.
I have a feeling if in fact that becomes available to you, it's something that's going to require a lot of study and due diligence
Yeah.
as to the future use of that large piece of property in the building that sits on.
Yeah.
Tim, you bring up a good point. So affordable housing, when we had a lot of conversation about, we'll call it Robin Rugg, right? It was reiterated a few times that affordable housing means 80 to 120% of market value. Do the math on that one. If market is 100%, affordable can be considered 120%. So it is not Section 8. It is not low income housing. They do have their place, but that is not what this is talking about.
Workforce housing is a better way to put it.
That is a nice way to put it. Thank you. Mr. Hewitt?
First off, I don't know, and I'm not confident enough to describe whether Section 8 and affordable, low income housing is the same. I know that affordable housing does impose a deed restriction for anywhere from 30 to 99 years for the development of those units. So I'm not quite sure how Section 8 is distinguished from affordable. I think they're more in sync than they are different. But that's P. Hewitt's opinion. On the issue of the statute, I think Mr. Asillo, and he has certainly more experience at this than I do, I think he's reading too much favorable into the statute, because the statute in no way addresses whether the town does or does not exercise control over the property once the property is abandoned for school use. I think the statute talks about if you're less than 10% affordable housing in the town, then the assessment, the feasibility assessment is mandated to be accomplished and done. And once you have a feasibility study, if the task force determines that the building in itself is feasible for affordable housing, then it's a question of who determines what happens after that. I think the state, if they are informed that the building is feasible by virtue of the feasibility assessment, the task force reports that the building is feasible for affordable housing, then I think the state then at that point exercises its option of seeking developers for that building. Now, again, if there are developers lined up to make a proposal for how they would utilize that building, it still remains open to question what power, what authority does the town exercise over the building if the state determines it's feasible for affordable housing. But I don't think the statute addresses what the town has or doesn't have in terms of control over the property.
The state does not take over control of the property.
Well, it doesn't, statute doesn't say that.
I can assure you that the state cannot come in and take, whether it's this town or any other town, cannot take the property. It's an incentive program. You are correct. And as I said, that the state could provide monies or other incentives for a developer to develop such a property into affordable housing because they're trying to create more. But ultimately, each community has the final say as to whether or not that happens.
The statute doesn't say that. You're going on your experience, and I defer to your experience, but the statute is silent on that issue.
The statute certainly doesn't say that the state takes town property.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But it does talk about a feasibility assessment.
Agreed.
The
Yes.
task force then revises, so,
Feasibility study.
and then there's a section in the statute that says the Rhode Island Department of Education shall promulgate rules and regulations for the implementation and enforcement of this section. And that's what scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, I don't think those rules and regs have been developed. I couldn't find them.
Well, that was the next question I was going to ask you. Have you looked at the rules and regulations? And if they haven't been developed yet, it doesn't mean they can't be developed tomorrow. Particularly if the state wants to take action because the town of Bristol has not met its 10% guideline for affordable housing. So I just raised the issue for your concern, for all of your concern.
I think it's curious like that RIDE would be the one to write the rules because none of these, in most, I don't know about other towns, but like in our town, the buildings are all owned by the town. They're not owned by the school department or, like in Bristol Warren, they could be owned by the school department, right? Because it's a separate entity. Not just a department, it's a separate entity.
So the RIDE's involvement is that RIDE is the repository for reporting the vacant building. The task force that Mr. Hewitt refers to is actually made up of the Secretary of Housing, a representative of the Rhode Island Housing Mortgage Finance Corporation, Department of Health, the local fire marshal, the local building inspector, the local planning department. I mean, there's the actual task force it's not RIDE.
But what about the promulgation of rules and regulations on how you go about doing that? That's what he said is RIDE. I love these two lawyers debating this issue over here. I'm still like, it always makes it,
I'm
no,
not as
seriously,
much
I'm
a
serious.
big
It's
fan of
interesting.
the
It's
back
interesting
and forth,
because
yeah.
different ways people interpret stuff.
I'm ready to go.
So what are they promulgating the rules and regulations as to how this would be done? Or is it laid out like this task force and who should be on it is in legislation? They really don't have a lot of room to put their 2 cents worth, so to speak, into the rules and regulations.
As I sit here, I'm looking at it. I can't tell you who actually promulgates the rules and regs. I do know we haven't found any.
Here's what I was hoping.
Pete, one
that-
second.
Yep.
Tony was going to say something.
I'm just, as Mary pointed out, I learned also from the newspaper. Actually, somebody tipped me, but then I read it in more detail through the newspaper. I am a bit disappointed that this was not brought up at our joint finance meeting, that we were not given some more of heads up when it was discussed, buildings and improvements and so forth, that this was not one of those items. This should have come from the superintendent to us, to that committee. That's my opinion. That's my feeling.
Well, in that vein, we have an opportunity from this discussion to address a few things, including the building coming back to the town and the requirements. So we're not going to get into that this evening, but it's an opportunity to make sure that I'm going to give an example. As Wally came back to the town, it was not in its best condition, and we want to make sure that Gutierrez or any other building is given back to the town in good working order. Not perfection, just good working order. That is not what this agenda item is about. It was about Gutierrez. It is about Gutierrez. The solicitor responded. Mr. Solicitor, thank you for doing the homework on that. And Peter, thank you for bringing it to this council's attention and the public's attention to be addressed.
Here's what I was hoping for. That
I don't think I asked you what you were hoping for. But
Well,
go
I'm going
ahead.
to tell you
I
anyway.
thought you would, so go ahead.
When the Gutierrez School, I understand, was deeded over by the Gutierrez family to the town of Bristol. I don't know the terms and conditions of that grant, whether it was exclusive as long as the building is used for educational purposes. And once the building is no longer used for educational purposes of a school, what does that grant provide, if anything? Or does it restrict the deed of grant such that the town, even if the state wants to mandate what you do with that building, that the grant from the Gutierrez family may very well allow the town to do something other than what the state might potentially mandate in the future.
So to that end, with Oliver, with Wally, with Reynolds, with Byfield, all of that homework was done. And it would also be done with Gutierrez. Now, specifically with Gutierrez, it's a similarity to Colt School, which Colt has a fund, so does Gutierrez. And that fund is a similar setup for, we'll call it serious maintenance, not just painting, such and so forth, and improvement. So there's a lot of things that go into it. And I can tell you that the same homework and the same, we'll call it due diligence, would happen with Gutierrez. And wonderful thing about all of this, all public. So that discussion will be right here and we'll talk about it all together. Your concerns are our concerns, and talking about them now, not when the keys are handed over, is the appropriate time to talk about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just quickly, I was able to look up and finally find the answer to Mary's, but it is RIDE. RIDE has been given the responsibility for developing.
Well, that's what Pete had said. That's what struck me as kind of a interesting point.
Less than one would think, right? So we just need a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to receive and file. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Solicitor.
Executive session. The motion would be to convene into executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42465A5 relative to the lease of real property.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim, as stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. To the public, we're going into executive session and we will end the video, but we will come out at the end of executive session for a final vote on that. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.